So I want to preface this video by stating solemnly that this video does not seek to criticize Pokemon and raise Kindred Fates above it. The intention of this video is to instead curb the false narrative that Kindred Fates is a quote-unquote Pokemon clone. Throughout this video, I plan to explore the various aspects of each that parallel the two, as well as the aspects that set them apart and make them their own standalone concepts. I'll also try to uncover the root of some of these odd claims that the two are essentially not unique from one another. Now, from a backer's perspective, the relationship between Kindred Fates and Pokemon seemed to be nothing more than that of an inspirational twist on the creature collecting format. Pokemon's just one of the many games that Kindred Fates seems to take its inspiration from. As stated by Skymill Studios founder Rob in his interview on the Impossible Coin podcast, Kindred Fates takes inspiration from many games such as Pokemon, Dark Souls, and League of Legends, just to name a few. Being as this is the case, one might be asking themselves, well, who's labeling this title as a Pokemon clone and why? Taking a look at some of these video titles may give us some semblance of a reason. Now let me just say there's nothing wrong with using Pokemon as a way to introduce the concept of Kindred Fates. That's absolutely acceptable. It's a monster taming game and thus it's part of the same subgenre. The issue is with these kind of thumbnails that portray this false narrative that Kindred Fates is in fact a Pokemon clone. This video by a YouTuber Landon Arrow literally refers to Kindred Fates not as a Pokemon styled game, but as a new Pokemon game. Fugami Crew's thumbnail literally calls Kindred Fates a Pokemon clone, and at 20 seconds into his video, he ignorantly states that it's a Pokemon ripoff. I think a lot of the immediate disregard for the game comes from this idea that it's just another quote-unquote Pokemon clone, which couldn't be further from the truth. Many people will bring up Temtem as an example to compare this game to, as similarly to Kindred Fates, it was also a Kickstarter project by an indie studio that was inspired by Pokemon. The difference here, however, is that at the very least, when people call Temtem a Pokemon clone, Temtem is quite similar. It's a turn-based game, it has dojos instead of gyms, it follows a trainer on their path to be the very best, etc. I still do believe that Temtem is similar but different enough to make it unique in its monster designs, its battle system rework, its overall change in tune toward the competitive side of things, etc. So it is sort of its own separate title, but that's a tangent. Kindred Fates, on the other hand, isn't similar to Pokemon at all from gameplay, lore, or a thematic perspective. Now let's break down each one and try to spot the cloning process by which many ignorant individuals seem to think took place here. First of all is the gameplay. Other than the fact that Kindred Fates will feature an optional secondary turn-based mode, due to the fact that it reached the appropriate stretch goal, its combat is focused in real time and almost features a League of Legends style of combat using various roles like minion control, burst damage, tanks, walls, etc. Pokemon, on the other hand, is sort of like a game of chess. Each player chooses their move and they attack one after the other. It's a turn-based game. Kindred Fates also features an open world, something in which a Pokemon game has never done. And no, the wild area is not an open world, just like how Ocarina of Time's Hyrule Field does not make that game an open world. Open world actually means something. It means you have control over what you do and usually in which order and how you go about things. Pokemon has given us choices like this in the past, like in Red and Blue, you can pick the gyms in whichever order you want, but generally speaking, Pokemon's a very linear game. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a fact. In terms of gameplay, Kindred Fates and Pokemon share very little in common. Types represent playstyles in Kindred, while in Pokemon, they represent damage modifiers. The combat and the way the world is explored is completely different. In terms of lore, I can't get too specific as we don't know much about the lore of Kindred Fates. I have that video that we came out with last week if you want to know about the lore of the game, but a big difference between the way the games play out are the monsters themselves. Kinfolk aren't very similar to Pokemon other than the fact that they evolve and have types, which is pretty much present in any monster tamer game. And heck, even most JRPGs. The Kinfolk live on an even playing field with the humans and are fully capable of speech. Pokemon, on the other hand, are more like pets to the trainers, whereas the bond between kinfolk and human is not unconditional, but is mutual. In terms of theme, Kindred Fates features a much darker underlying tone. The kinfolk will die if defeated and not recovered. Pokemon is sort of about being a tourist in a way and challenging the league like a sport, whereas Kindred Fates is about survival. Sure, there are guilds in Kindred Fates and some might think that they are parallel to gyms, but they're not required through the main story. This isn't a story about someone who's trying to be the very best, it's a story about someone who's trying to make sense of senseless violence. At least that's what it seems. All in all, Kindred Fates is not a Pokemon clone, and anyone stating that it is just touting ignorance to the highest degree. Other than the catching and battling aspect of monsters, Pokemon and Kindred Fates do not have that much in common. Kindred Fates is its own title with its own ambitions, and Pokemon is not the sole contributor to that, and that's okay. Over the years, Pokemon has inspired many, and it's great to see that that inspiration has made its way into Kindred Fates, but it's time to stop calling it a clone or a ripoff. If someone tries to use this sort of flimsy logic, then ask them this: is every FPS game a ripoff of Call of Duty or GoldenEye? I mean, if you have guns and shoot from a first-person perspective, it's the same, right? Every first-person shooter game is different. The core mechanics are the same. You're a first-person shooting, but it's different. It's the same with Kindred Fates. It's not a ripoff just for having creature collecting. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this short sort of, and I use this term very lightly, essay I compiled. When I say video essays, essay is a very flimsy term because these aren't very long. I'm used to writing much larger essays than this, just back when I was in school and stuff. But the point is that unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people write off Kindred Fates as a Pokemon clone, so I felt that making this video was almost necessary. Like I said before, I made a lore video, so make sure to check it out. I put a lot of work into the script behind it. And I also have a viewer/subscriber Discord where we can talk directly with the community and just, you know, shoot the shit about anything. I also do Temtem giveaways there. So if any of that interests you, make sure to check it out, and make sure to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and until next time, peace.